Here's a hopefully short video of a cheap method of getting a scope on your sub 2K. Now I do have another video showing this method using just two-part epoxy, and if you don't want to cut into your forend, you just want to be very minimalistic on what you're going to do to your forend, go watch that video and see what you think of that. For those of you who want to forge on ahead and go ahead and cut into your forend and you don't mind, continue on. Okay, for starters, you're going to need a Weaver 405 base. Comes in a bag like that. It also gets referenced under this number sometimes, I've seen, 48105. But the base is for Thompson Center TCR, so if you just ask for a base for that, this is what they should come out and give you. I'll show you the particular base and why you want this one. This gun has been checked and unloaded. It's because of the hole pattern. The forend on the sub 2K, as most of you probably already know, is in two halves. So you need a set of holes going into each half. So this particular base is perfect. All you really need to do to alter it is countersink the holes in accordance to whatever hardware you choose to use. All you have to keep in mind is the hardware sits below flush of the top of the base. Beyond that, you can pretty much use whatever you want. What I used was number 632 machine screws, 1/2 inch long. These particular ones are stainless, and of course 632 lock nuts and flat washers, 4 pieces of each. I think the hardware all in total was about $5 from Home Depot. Home Depot has a really good selection of stainless hardware. I live in a boat, so this is something I keep note of, and I'm there frequently picking up little bits of stainless hardware, and they are the best source for it. Not that I think Home Depot is fantastic or anything, it's just where I go for hardware. But anyway, after you do the work on the base and get it all sorted out, all you do is, first you got to make sure you're on the right part of the forend. You'll notice that this base, with the rifle closed and folded and locked, it's just clear of this tube, and you need to clear this lock nut they use to secure it into the receiver, I guess. So you know what, I'm pretty close. I could have come back just a touch, but I wanted to have just a bit of clearance in there, so that's where I sat. So that's the one thing you're going to want to keep in mind when you are putting your holes in your forend. And of course you're going to need to make sure it's laying on here straight, which, considering there's a seam here, can be kind of a pain in the neck. I used C-clamps, clamped it down, got it reasonably straight, and just kind of kept tapping and playing around till I got it straight, and then drilled my holes through. Now I went real tight with my holes, and then tapped the holes, and then screwed it on just to kind of check and see how it was. I actually fired it like that a bit, and it actually didn't work bad. This stuff's so strong that if you tap into it, it'll hold a screw pretty tight, actually. But anyway, once I figured out it was going to work, then what I did was I made the holes bigger and ran my screws all the way through and put nuts on the inside of the forend. Now, as I said before, I originally started off just gluing them in with two-part epoxy, and while that will hold, if you take your forend off and on as much as I did, mostly to do the video, the two-part epoxy will eventually just come loose. It doesn't actually stick to this. I'm really not sure what would stick to this. I think that's something only Kel-Tec knows. But anyway, that being said, The reason I put the washers in as spacers is because of the nature of the top of the forend. And it's really hard to work with, so you're better off just using those, spacing them up above the imperfections, and the whole thing sits nice and level without any kind of movement. It's a nice firm way of doing it. The size of the slots, I made mine pretty darn big, as you can see. I wanted to be able to get in there with a wrench and have lots of room to fiddle around. I don't think I can get, yeah, I can't get that part on, but I can definitely get on there with the wrench. Probably in both ways. I've got enough movement in there. So that's why I went this big. You could probably go a bit smaller, and if you custom made a little wrench to go in there, you could probably get these slots down in size quite a bit. But I'm pretty clumsy with my hands, so I wanted something where I could get in there with the vice grips too, to feed the nuts in. What I do, pretty much just common sense, is with the forend split apart and off the gun, I get the rail started on 1/2. I don't tighten it right tight, but I get it on, get the screws through, the nut started, then I put my 2 halves together, get it secured down, and then I only have to feed 2 nuts through. And I do it just from this facing. I feed the screws up through from the bottom and set the nuts in with this, and then slowly thread the screws into the nut, making sure not to get them cross-threaded. This is all stainless hardware, so it's pretty strong stuff. So the chances of actually cross-threading it are pretty slim. You'd really have to work at it to do it. And then once I tighten the forend down, making sure it's good and secure, and then I tighten it right up. Like, these are real tight. I'm not particularly careful with how tight I make it. I really reef that thing down. So this isn't going to slide or wiggle around, trust me on that one. The fact that this plastic is so durable makes this possible. This is not going to break. I mean, you know what, I could probably hang off the thing and maybe get it to crack or whatever. I'm really not sure what it would take to break this plastic. I'm pretty impressed with it. That being said, it's a really secure way of getting a scope mounted on it. If I put enough force on it to break that forend, I think my scope tube would be mangled beyond recognition, and most of my mounting system would likewise be destroyed long before that forend would break. Here's my particular scope mounting system. Anyone who has an AR is probably going to recognize this and go, wait, it's backwards. Yep, that's right. It's backwards. That's how it works. So if you have a Burris P.E.P.R mount, then you're halfway there if you don't mind flipping your scope around backwards. I find a 3/4 inch riser works perfectly for this. What it does is if your mount has holes to co-witness, this 3/4 inch riser is enough that you can, even with this large bell on this scope, you can see the iron, or I guess I should say plastic sights, and co-witness the scope that way, and it really solves a lot of problems. This particular riser is a very cheap one. All it does is have a lever here. Trying to do it in front of the camera and it just wasn't working out for me. But there it is, off and on with the lever. So your sub 2K is still foldable. This will hold zero, taking the scope off and on like that. Now if you pull your forend halves apart, your vertical will be pretty darn close, but your horizontal point of aim will be nowhere where you left it unless you get really lucky. Start off at 25 meters and work your way up. You probably won't even hit paper if you try and start off at 100 meters to tune in your scope. You could very well be right off of your 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper if that's what you're using for a target. If you're using a really big target, you'll be fine, but I just use paper printed out from computer paper, so I just move the paper closer when I want bigger paper. Pretty simple. But anyway, there you have it. It's a cheap way of getting a scope mounted on your sub 2K. If you use a quick detach riser, it lets you fold it up still, which is the whole point of having a sub 2K. You can fit the whole package in a backpack or whatever. If you don't want to take your scope with you and just want to use your sights, you can do that, and the whole thing goes back to being your regular everyday sub 2K that quickly. You just have this little rail here. And I think once I get that painted up flat black, I think it's going to look pretty decent. So there you have it. Hope that inspires anybody who wants to get a scope on their sub 2K cheaply, or like me is Canadian and really doesn't have much of an option otherwise. Hope you enjoy the video.